then, inshallah. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum to everybody listening in today. Welcome to our seminar. And today we are collaborating with Faith Associates, so Vibrant Scottish Mosques in collaboration with Faith Associates talking about mosques and COVID recovery and the important role that women can play in this. Now, a few days ago, 19th of July, was the so-called Freedom Day in England, and fast approaching is the 9th of August here in Scotland, where we will be going back to more of a normal life, and it will be Scotland's so-called Freedom Day. And we are emerging from the lockdown restrictions that we've had over the last year and a half. And we're living now in a post-COVID world, so they say. However, this is not really a post-COVID world. It's more of a world where we're living with COVID, and it's very much a new normal. And over the last year, 2 years, our mosques have adapted and changed and brought in new guidelines again and again, and we continue to do so. So today we really want to talk about how do our mosques and our Islamic centres adapt to this new normal coming out of our COVID restrictions, coming out of lockdown, when they've already been through so many changes. And we've been really fortunate. I think the Muslim community has been very fortunate. We've had amazing organisations such as the Muslim Council of Britain, Muslim Council of Scotland, taking advice from organisations like British Muslim Islamic Association and BBSI and Faith Associates, really working together, sharing expertise to build guidelines and guidance for the Muslim communities, Islamic centres and mosques. So we have an expert in that field today. We have Shaukat Varish with us today, who is CEO of Faith Associates. He's also the advisor to many mosques and local councils and government on working with faith institutes. He's also the founder and head teacher of South Community School, which got an award for excellence in education. And he's authored many guidelines and guidance on mosque management and leadership in mosques. He's also been one of the pioneers of safeguarding and talking about mosque security in recent times, which has been a very important topic for mosques to be aware of. So really, I want to get this discussion started and learn from Shaukat and hear from him on what he has to say. So Brother Shaukat, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Dr. Sahar, thank you so much for that very kind introduction, and it's a pleasure to be with you this evening.
I want to, Brother Shaukat, I want to hear from you really. What do you think, starting off, just to get lay the ground, what do you think has been the impact of COVID on our mosques and our Islamic centres?
So, I mean, that's a good question to start with. I mean, this is the COVID crisis has been, and everyone says it's been unprecedented. I don't think in most people's lifetime there's ever been a situation where there's been no Hajj, there's been Umrah has been restricted, where mosques around the world have closed their doors for weeks on end when no one can visit them. This is unprecedented. In kind of modern day history, that's never happened before on this scale, where from east to west, from Morocco to Malaysia, masajids have been closed, Islamic centers have been closed, madaris have been closed, Dar al-Ulooms have been closed, and literally the only person entering those buildings is presumably the caretaker, and if there's been an emergency, either the police or the fire service. So this is unprecedented. But in unprecedented times, you probably see people that had muscle, who were strong, who had vision, who had capability, who had planned for disasters. Those organizations, mashallah, have done incredibly well, and we'll probably talk about some of those achievements as the program goes by. But those organizations that didn't have contingency, did not have strong leadership, that had weak infrastructure, human-wise, financial-wise, have been struggling and continue to struggle as well. So this particular pandemic has definitely indicated To many of us who are in the field, who are working with masajid, with Islamic centers, with madrasas, we can see pioneering leadership that's been very well nimble in a sense that could cope with such a dramatic change. And then we've seen organizations, unfortunately, that didn't have the contingency and where they are today as well. So COVID, yes, it's been, for many people, it's been an incredible challenge. For some people, it's been a blessing. Everything from Allah is potentially a blessing, and it really depends on how you want to view it. But from my perspective, I've seen some amazing work. I've seen some amazing leadership. I've seen some amazing people that have done fantastic work during this crisis. And unfortunately, I've seen people that have struggled, and we've been helping both sides of the coin.
Like you said, we see every opportunity from God as a blessing. If whether that's a pandemic or death of a loved one, there's always some blessing in hardship. As Muslims, we know that. So what have the blessings been here? What have the blessings of the pandemic been for the Muslim communities, for Islamic centres, for madrasas, and what have we learnt from these opportunities?
Absolutely. Look, I mean, I'm a person who's always thinking the glass is half full instead of half empty, and everything that Allah puts your way, there's always khair in that. You might not be able to see it straight away, but there's always khair. And in my opinion, what I've seen, look, where you've had old leadership, unfortunately, some of our uncles, some of our elderly that were running the mosques are not here today. That's very sad for some of those masajid, but it's an opportunity for the new leadership that can come in and fill the breach, as it were. We've seen masajid, for instance, that straight away, literally within weeks of the pandemic, shift their service capability, service provision. I'll give you an example. One masajid that had 600 children coming every day for madrasa basically had to shut their doors, went online, went from 600 to 1,000 children. Incredible change, incredible movement of people. They were able to equip themselves with the technology. Teachers went online. Zoom came onto the arena. They changed their numbers from 600 to 1,000. Revenue, instead of going up, instead of going down, went up. Masajids, for instance, what we found during austerity, the local authorities cut many budgets, specifically budgets around engaging communities. When the pandemic came, many of the local authorities did not have those intimate relationships with grassroots organizations. Guess who did? Some masajids had fantastic relationships. And those masajids now are at the front line in delivering medicines, delivering food handouts to poor people, delivering food handouts to refugees, helping elderly people that could not leave their homes, getting prescriptions to them. Budgets in excess of hundreds of thousands of pounds given to masajid during the pandemic because they had the teams, had the people in place, delivering for the communities during this very hard time. So this is where I've seen some masajids done some fantastic work. I've written a document about masajids that beacon masajids that really stepped up and delivered. And I think we've got around about 200 to 300 masajids that we've documented that actually have been working hand in hand with local authorities, with community organizations in partnership to serve the community. So that's the positive side. That's where masajids have really thought, okay, what's the vision of the masjid? How does my masjid deal with the reality of today? How do I go beyond? What's my concept of ibadah? Ibadah is not just praying 5 times a day, it's about helping humanity. That's also what ibadah is. On the sad side, where challenges have happened is that straight away when the masajids were not nimble enough, were not able to adapt, The doors were closed. They had to close, legally had to close. Revenue dropped. People were not working. People had to be laid off. Alhamdulillah, the government had the furlough scheme that kept people in work or kept people on the payroll. I think if furlough wasn't there, many masajid might have become bankrupt, unfortunately. So there is a there was a major challenge financially, without a shadow of a doubt. Having said that, there's been some very, very notable benefactors that have helped masajid financially, kept them over the line, kept them above water. But the other side is that where local authorities did not have a relationship with the masajid, or where masajid did not reach out, they were left by the wayside. No contact, very little engagement. Communities then moved and shifted to where masajids were active, and that's been very instrumental in the vaccination distribution. Vaccination distribution from masajids, testing centers from masajids. I'm not sure if you've seen pictures from particularly London. There are masajids, for instance, where there are literally hundreds of people queuing round the block, going into masajids for vaccination and testing. Incredible scenes. 99% of the people in those queues, non-Muslims. And I think masajids have changed the perception in many people's eyes during this pandemic. Where the masajids were open, where the leadership was nimble, where the leadership realized that the masajid is much more beyond prayer, those people have done incredibly well. And non-Muslims are praising those institutions. Non-Muslims have been working hand in hand with the masajid to cope with the demand for vaccination and for testing as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We've seen some of these really great examples here locally in Scotland and in Glasgow and Edinburgh and these cities as well. And the vaccination programme has been a great example of it. And it's lovely to see our mosque being the centre of the community, not just the centre of the Muslim community, but the community at large, and serving humanity, which you as you've rightly pointed out, really that is our purpose, is to be of service to people and to service God's creation. There's lots of positives, alhamdulillah, some great work being happening, but it's the pandemic's also, you've made reference to this, some weak areas have come up. What are those gaps that are maybe have been highlighted in the last year? What are those areas of development?
Absolutely. The gaps have been stark in certain places. What we've seen is that where masajids, so let's be clear here. When the government last year, we Faith Associates started to read the situation when the pandemic was emerging in Wuhan in 2019. We saw the rapid spread, and we started talking to Muslim practitioners in the medical field, and said this is looking very dangerous. And I remember some of the first information that we started to give back in February 2020, saying to masajids, prepare your technology, prepare your capability to communicate with people if the doors are closed. If people are not allowed to come, how are you going to service them? And if people start to die in big numbers, how is the masajid going to cope with that? And that was before the government actually pushed for a severe lockdown. In that initial communication, it was quite clear that certain of our community, first of all, was in denial. They felt that this could not happen. And secondly, even if they thought that this was going to happen, they did not know how to deal with this challenge. Where you had masajid that had three specific components in their leadership, they began to move very quickly. And the three components were this. One was that there was a younger, technically savvy, mentally nimble, operationally nimble leadership. So basically people that had contacts with local authorities, medical people, people that had financial teaching skills inside the leadership. They were beginning to make steps to prepare for a potential lockdown, number one. Number two, organizations that had women, sisters, not just aunties, very elderly women, but young women that had grassroots connections, that had operational abilities to serve the masajid and the community, that were inside decision-making apparatus. Masajids were very prepared. The third component was the ability to, so this combination of young people. So when I talk about young people, I'm not talking about 16-year-olds. I'm not talking about, teenagers. I'm talking about young professionals starting from the age of, say, 25 to 55, this age group. So there's a blend of that level of people in the leadership, combined with people that have been there from the beginning, our elders that may have been in 65, 75, 85 in some cases. But they began to realize that when the government said that people over the of certain ages are recommended not to go, they had to hand over to young people. Those organizations that did not have young people, that had majority over the age of 65, those people did not have people to hand over the reins to run the facility, and invariably had to shut down in the first wave back in April, May, June time. But where we saw women, young professionals working together and had those links with local authorities, particularly schools, particularly local councils and the police, those organizations were thriving and actually inspiring the community. Because then what happened was, we saw masajid that had locked down, could not open, turn to those masajid to say, we need your help. And alhamdulillah, because of the unity factor, masajids that felt that they were going to put all this sectarian differences aside and say, look, for the sake of Allah, we're going to work together. And also, I want to mention very quickly here, we'll talk about it possibly later, is where communities or cities had council for mosques, they were way ahead of the curve. MashaAllah, places like Bradford Council for Mosques, Lancashire Council for Mosques, Peterborough Council for Mosques, parts of Leicester, parts of London, Bristol in particular, Cardiff, very, very successfully were working together. Where you did not have council for mosques, major struggles. But I'll stop there. I know I'm maybe talking too much.
I wanted to summarize what you've just said in terms of the mosques that were thriving. You're saying that the mosques that thrived are the mosques that had a diversity of skills within the management team and diversity of gender within the management team. So people of different ages, different skill sets, different networks. And as we know, women are great at working with grassroots organisations. They understand the kind of needs of families and the needs of the communities, and having professionals. So I mean, it sounds obvious, Brother Shaka, that you're saying that the mosques that were thriving were the ones that had that diversity in their management, in their governance of different skill sets, different networks, different the two genders. And it seems obvious that that is the case. What are the barriers then? This is a tough one. What are the barriers to some mosques having that in place, to having that diversity within their management structure of age and gender and skill set? Number one. And number two, we've talked a lot about the positive. This is actually a comment that came in, and it sparked some memories for me. We've talked about a lot of the mosques that were working with local authorities, we're working with health boards, doing vaccination programs, but some of those mosques were still really struggling with how they were going to navigate their female spaces in their mosques. And I remember in Ramadan contacting mosques, finding out if they were opening for Tarawih for women as well as men. And a lot of mosques didn't know what they were going to do. They knew they were opening for Tarawih. They had to start thinking of systems to put in place. They were obviously going to open to men, but they didn't know if they were going to open to women or how they were going to open to women. And some mosques just decided that it was easier not to do that. I don't know if you've got any thoughts or kind of opinions on that, because we're obviously coming past that where the restrictions are becoming eased, but that was unfortunately disappointing to many women and the community in general, I think, when there wasn't the foresight of how to deal with it. And we'd had previous Ramadan in lockdown, so I kind of felt that should have been thought about and planned ahead.
I mean, there's actually a lot of things that you've said, and to unpack that, I'm not sure we're going to have enough time, but happy to come back at another time. But let me take your first point about organizations. I'll bring three examples to the table today, and they're primarily from England at the moment. And there is a masajid in Kirkcaldy, I think, that I've had the pleasure of engaging with, that had diversity in the leadership, and they were operating at a pretty high level. But there's three beacon mosques, and this is why we've called them beacon mosques, is because they are outstanding facilities, and there's a standard that we've set. We'd love to bring those standards to Scotland and get some beacon status mosques set up there. But the three mosques that I want to talk about, one is in Birmingham, a place called Green Lane Mosque. The second masajid is in East London, called the Barking Islamic Centre, Al Medina. And the other one is another mosque in the north of London, central London. It's called the Grenfell Mosque, where the Grenfell fire was. When that fire took place and people, hundreds of families were displaced, it was this particular masajid that actually facilitated, catered, looked after, and later on, Princess I've forgotten the lady's name now. The Harry's wife,
Meghan
went there. She saw how the masajid was working, and basically did a wonderful thing. Actually, she saw the women from Grenfell using the masjid's canteen, and it wasn't in a pretty state. And what she did was she cleverly wrote a cookbook based upon the recipes of the women that were destitute from Grenfell, produced a book, published the book, and all the royalties and sale from the book went to the masajid to refurbish the masjid canteen. Fabulous facility designed by a world-class architect. But these three institutions, what's central is women's involvement. The women have been involved there for a long time. And what's interesting is that, especially in particular in Barking and in Almanar, which is next to Grenfell, is that there is a diversity of the type of women. There are Muslim as well as non-Muslim women involved in the leadership. There are women that have been given the confidence, have been given space, have been given projects where they have total control. They have budgets, they have benchmarks, they have targets to reach, and they're basically said, get on with it. What that did was build capacity, build capability, build a confidence in the women that when the disaster did take place, when COVID did come, the women said, this is our responsibility, this is what we want to do, this is where we can help, this is where we need men's support, this is where we can do it independently, this is where we want to help the men as well. So what you found was, first of all, there is a pool of women. There are women that are trained, confident, capable, but that has come because the men gave them the space initially, helped them, supported them, ring-fenced them. So when there was criticism, there were men standing with them, side by side, or in front of them, defending them if a mistake or a problem occurred. So that was very important. The other thing was, I think, a critical component is this ideological lack of any friction ideologically. Where I've seen ideological friction makes women's position very difficult to operate. What I found in places where there is no ideological friction, where there's ideological, a fiqh, clear understanding of women's need for involvement, and fundamental to that fiqh smoothness is understanding the Medina model, understanding the Prophet, peace be upon him, model of engagement with women, understanding women's involvement in the Medina masajid, understanding Dar al-Arqam's model in Mecca, and how women played a very central role in the development of the Islamic community, both in Mecca, in the Meccan period, in the Medina period, post-Prophet's life, in Abu Bakr's time, in Umar's time, in Ali's time, Usman's time, how women were involved at very senior level in all these administrations within Medina, where the ulama in the masajid, where the leadership is understanding the women's position, where there is no friction at leadership level, there is complete efficiency in the delivery of services in the masajid. And I saw it with my own eyes in these three institutions. And Al Medina, from 2020 to this year, was voted the best run mosque in the UK. And if you ever get the chance to go, and if anyone wants to go, there's a fantastic secretary there. His name is Ashfaq. He will show you the facility. I've visited it many times. Whenever I'm contacted by governments, and I was contacted by the Danish government, the Australian government, when they ask me what is a beacon mosque, I take them to Ashfaq's place. And they're overawed. And I went to Australia 2 years ago, and I met some of the civil servants, and they said, we've taken some of your ideas and implemented them and shared them in people with Australia and in New Zealand. So there are some outstanding facilities, and what you'll find at the heart of those facilities are brothers and sisters working together. Your next point regarding Ramadan and women's involvement in Tarawih. Yes, look, good leadership does not wait for problems to occur. Good leadership predicts problems, has solutions in place, expecting if those problems occur, what to do, and will basically even test those solutions before the problems occur. Okay, and there's another ingredient that I've seen in good leadership is that they prepare people to solve problems that don't exist today. It's a very important point. They prepare people to solve problems that don't exist today. That's good leadership. So when COVID occurred, if you read Bill Gates' work, Bill Gates left Microsoft and has devoted his life to preparing and helping solve some of the major crises in medicine. And he was predicting pandemics 10 years ago. And some of his solutions are being used by governments today. There's a visionary person that is working to basically solve certain problems. Muslim leadership that is in charge of institutions like Masajid, which is the main Muslim institution in this country, needs to start looking at solving problems, potential problems that don't exist today. And where Masajid had that capability, they thrived and are thriving today. When it comes to Taraweeh, we were saying from a long time, because in 2020 in Ramadan, you couldn't go to the mosque. We knew that this Ramadan, the Masajid would be open. And there's absolutely no excuse for not allowing some space in the Masajid for women to fulfill the spiritual obligation. Absolutely no excuse. If there was an help, and I heard some excuses, and some of the excuses were frankly pathetic. One of the excuses I heard was to do with health and safety. If it's a health and safety problem for women, there's the same health and safety problem for men as well. So that was a lame excuse. Where there were sisters really in the leadership, some people say, oh, we consulted women and they said they didn't want to come. Allah Hawale. I don't want to judge those people, but frankly speaking, wherever there were women in really in decision making processes, I don't think any woman said that we will let our space go to men. They have equal rights to worship Allah. They have every right to be in the masajid. No man has any right to forbid women to enter the masajid. So they have the same spiritual requirements. This is my understanding. Allah knows best. But according to my understanding of fiqh and Sharia, understanding seerah of the Prophet peace be upon him, women have equal access to the masajid if they wish so, and men, if they are in roles of responsibility, need to provide them access if they desire to go there.
Brother Shaka, there's women that are listening to this and they're wondering, how do I get involved in this? You know, it's almost like the COVID recovery of the mosque. There's opportunities now for change. We can see some of the gaps for development. So the two questions really for women that are already involved in mosques as volunteers. How can they be more involved? Say they want to be involved in management and decision making because they can see the areas that need change. How would you advise them? And how would you advise women that are sitting at home and thinking, I want to be of service to my community. I want to be of service to my community through my mosque because they see the powerful and important role spiritually, socially, emotionally that the mosque can play. What advice can you give them? How can women play a role in this sort of recovery phase post-COVID?
It's a very good question. Again, you've got two parts to it. First of all, let me be very clear that there is very strong Islamic principles that anyone that desires leadership, you should discourage that appetite if it's there. If you have the appetite to be a leader, maybe you're not the right person yet. But clearly, if you feel that you've got the capabilities to serve, you've got ideas that can transform and benefit society and benefit the community, seek Allah's guidance and step forward and basically offer your help. So there is two aspects. One is the issue if you're already in a position where you might be central to the decision-making process. What I mean by that is that you might be sitting as a trustee, you might be sitting in the management committee, or you might even be, I know some masajid that have now selected women to be the chief executive of the mosque. Okay, so there are women now that are actually running or have been running masajids. If you're in that position, you've got to, one step I think you should clearly do if you've not already done it, is you need to do an audit of your institution. What have you done right? What have you done wrong? Where have you had problems? Where have you excelled? What did you want to do and you couldn't do? What did you do and you didn't do well? What did you do and you done really well? Number one. Number two, I think what you need to do is that you need to understand, if I die of COVID, if I'm not there for whatever reason as a woman, is there any other women that can fill my position? Have I reached out to enough women that can take over from me if something happens? Thirdly, I think what you also, the advice that I give women that are currently in that position is basically, do people understand what your role is and what your role, basically, if you were not there, would the mosque look any different? Clearly, the answer should be, if you're not there, the mosque would look different. And what you want to do is that you want to make sure that your impact, your influence, your flavor that you bring to the leadership and direction of the masajid is not lost but is enhanced. And that is, and I've seen it time and time again, is where women are involved in leadership, there is a completely different atmosphere in the masajid, and the decisions being made are for not just one section, are for all sections. Okay, and that's what society is all about. And there's also what this pandemic has done is the understanding of the masajid is not only for Muslims. The masajid is for every living human being, and some masajids are even catering for animals as well. They're even thinking beyond the human. They're working at the even the animal level. They've got budgets in their finances to feed animals, cats and dogs and pigeons. So the idea of women's involvement at leadership level critical, and women that are currently there need to assess how do we bring on more women at their level, but also the secondary level where there is delivery taking place, and also who's been trained up to take the delivery positions. Coming to the issue about getting involved, that's very important. The key aspect of getting women involved, and I know you're going to touch upon it hopefully, is about we're going to run a workshop in Scotland for women in particular who want to be involved in masajid, and I'm sure you're going to tell people about that later on, that workshop that's going to take place in September. The key issue is where we found that women who want to get involved in the running of the facility at various levels, the way to enter that arena is through service delivery, where the masajid identifies a service that sisters can run or a sister can be involved in running. What we find is that leadership, if that person is competent, capable, and can work with people and show real dynamism, and the leadership at the top level understands that there needs to be diversity there, what they do is that they pick and encourage and take on board from that project. And that's where we've seen that natural growth, where sisters have been co-opted, have been selected to sit at the top table, and they've proved themselves through service delivery. Now, the next question is, okay, what services should sisters be involved with? Clearly, it's dependent on where the masajid is, what are the needs within the community, what is going to have the biggest impact, what do you think that Allah will be happy with, what the community will be happy with, where you can excel. All these factors need to be put into place. And I've seen sisters involved in setting up food banks, setting up food kitchens, setting up, for instance, medicine drop-off for sisters that are pharmacists, sisters that are doctors, sisters that are involved in accounts, sisters involved in IT, sisters involved in the madrasa, delivering services. I mean, I've just started a recent project with the English Cricket Board. And one of these projects I'm running with the English Cricket Board is to do with women involved with cricket. Clearly, women involved with cricket, we need the sisters to be involved. And at the moment, I think we've managed to bring nearly 100 women to this project. Okay, and one of the, I think a number of these projects where we've started is where the masajid said that, look, this area has to be exclusively for women. The training of the women, the delivery of this project, even if young boys want to be involved, it's all going to be women-led. And the masajid has handed it all over to the sisters, and there's pools of women involved, and there's budgets, and there's kits, and there's everything. So look, I think where a need can be identified, or if the sister knows where the need is, it's convincing, and it's basically encouraging the leadership to give them the chance. And sometimes, let's be honest, the chance is not given. Sisters do volunteer, sisters do come forward, sisters do say that there's a need there, and for whatever reason, the masjid refuses. Okay, what I've seen in those situations is that sisters have been brave enough, they've got the resources and started to deliver. The masjid later on has heard that it's been very successful, And guess what? They'll knock on the door and they'll say, "Sister, we wanted you to be in the project in the first place. Can you come and run it from our masajid?" And sisters have been very humble and said, "Yeah, we're ready to help the masajid." So look, sometimes you need to be brave. You need to bite your lip and start yourself. But if you're doing it for the sake of Allah, you shouldn't be worried about what people say and shouldn't be worried about people patting you on the back. You're doing it for the sake of Allah. Allah will give you the success in this life and in the hereafter, inshallah.
Inshallah. This brings me to another thing we want to talk about. Everything you said is about leadership, management, service delivery in mosques. And there'll be women sitting thinking, yeah, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to be brave, and I'm going to, get more involved in the mosque or take my ideas to the mosque. But they have the intelligence, they have the passion, the motivation, but they may feel that that doesn't translate into the skills of management in that capacity. So we're running a one-day training course for female volunteers on Saturday, the 4th of September. Brother Shaukat is going to be taking that training, and it'll be at Andalus in Glasgow. And I'm really excited about this because many years ago, I came across Faith Associates' guide, Muslim Women's Guide to Mosque Governance, Management and Service Delivery. And that was one of my inspirations for where we are today. Vibrant Scottish Mosques and the work that we're doing really was inspired by the women that have written in that guide that you put together. It's these women that had such expertise in a variety of areas, talking about how those expertise can be translated into service delivery in a mosque. So ranging from chaplaincy, counselling, interfaith, new Muslim services, a range of services led by women experts. So not just women volunteering, but women experts in those fields. And that really inspired me to start thinking about this whole project. And this is, and we're here today because of that. And I thought we need to bring that here to Scotland. We need to bring that kind of training here to Scotland. So inshallah, on Saturday, the 4th of September, we are offering a whole day of free training with Faith Associates, with Brother Shaukat, for women that want to volunteer at their mosque, want to bring their ideas to the mosque and really bring them to fruition. Brother Shaukat, can you tell us a little bit more about that training and those resources that women can bring to
I mean, first of all, thank you for mentioning that guide. I think it's one of the first guides of its kind in the world. And I put that guide together specifically because wherever I found, I mean, Allah's blessed me with the opportunity of traveling around the world, seeing hundreds of mosques from San Francisco all the way to Sydney. And what I found in beacon mosques everywhere in the world, women's involvement. Where you do not have women, where you do not have sisters spiritually deeply wedded to Allah's the Quran, women that are deeply spiritual who are not involved in the management of a mosque, that mosque is lacking something. Where a masajid has leadership that has inclusive within it women, invariably is delivering for every societal member that the masajid should be catering for. And you will find from the smallest issues that men would overlook, naturally sometimes would overlook because it doesn't involve them. Where sisters are involved, some of those issues are not overlooked. And I remember one thing that really kind of affected me once, and that's why I wanted to write the book, is that I was running a project in the masajid. 4 million pounds was spent on this masajid. And One day I was running a circle, running a project in the masajid, and a sister came to me. She just recently joined my team, and she said to me, "Brother, do you have a mirror?" And I said, I looked at her, and she obviously saw I was a bit shocked. I've never been asked that question by a sister, but obviously I was leading the project, and maybe she felt that I was open enough to address that question. And I said, "Sister, look, I don't carry a mirror with me, but is there a problem?" And she said, "Look, I want to do wudu in the girls' toilet, and I want to take my hijab off, and there's no mirror so I can put my hijab back on again properly." And I thought to myself, £4 million have been spent on this mosque, and they did not have any insight into having the right facilities for sisters. And that I thought was a message from Allah, that you're doing all this talking about management, you need to focus on helping sisters as well. And I when she said that to me, I thought to myself, this is from Allah, this is a sign. And I worked with a number of great sisters who you talked about, and I analyzed how did these sisters, some of those sisters, get involved with leadership, be involved in delivering. And one of those sisters actually became the chief executive of one of the Beacon Mosques, a sister, Sahar Islam, and she's an expert in counseling. And what the masjid found was that this woman had such great interpersonal skills, dealt with real life problems, engaged with people so well, that she went from becoming a leader in the masajid, then a trustee, and then a chairman of the trust, and then the chief executive. But because this sister Sahar Islam, she is listening, salam to you, Salih Islam, sorry. This was a great natural progression. And now with this COVID crisis, there's so much mental anguish, there's so much trauma because of bereavement. Sisters are playing a massive role. I've seen where the counseling services are being delivered by sisters, the chaplaincy services that you talked about, where there are people, for instance, I know that where elderly people have passed away in hospitals, the families could not do the ghusl on that person. Some people could not even see their face, and they were buried straight away. Just imagine the mental anguish that you could not see that loved one before they were buried. And some of the best people that have been providing that mental counseling are sisters. Some of the soft skills that are needed to do that work they're not found in men in our community, unfortunately, but they're found very, very well in some sisters. And just imagine if they're in the repertoire of services that a masjid could offer this grieving community that we have. As you know, that the percentage of people that passed away from, say, the ethnic minorities is significantly higher, and this is hidden trauma that needs to be dealt with, and it's going to take a long time for it to be healed. So women involved in service delivery, showing their capability and competence, being able to demonstrate that they can work either alone or work in teams, deliver practical solutions to really deep-seated problems. This is what the masjid needs. And if sisters can demonstrate those skills, they should be brought to the top table by the leadership that currently resides there. We can talk about elections, we can talk about co-options, we can talk about these things. This is another story. But I think the best way to demonstrate leadership is to get there, deliver it free of fi sabilillah, don't ask for money, deliver it for the sake of Allah, go week in, week out, and the doors will open, inshallah.
I think you've mentioned funerals, and obviously in the last year we've seen a lot of death in our community, unfortunately, and the role that chaplaincy has played in that has been so important. And these are people that are not necessarily qualified counsellors, but they've really had to step into that role because it's been needed in a community. And the two most important events in a person's life are marriages and deaths, and they happen in mosques, or nikahs happen in mosques, or deaths happen in mosques. And I really believe that those are services that women should be involved in. Every mosque has a nikah service, every mosque has some sort of funeral service. our women need to be involved in those services. And I think it's the greatest service you can do. It's the greatest sadaqah you can give to your community, to be involved in something like that. And again, it comes back to what we were saying about this training day for volunteers, for women volunteers. And it's not just about, you know, oh, I want to start making decisions in my mosque. It's not about, oh, I want to be a leader in my mosque. Like Brother Shock has pointed out, it's leadership comes in so many different faces and so many different facets, and it's really just about being of service. And I know there's a lot of women out there that want to do that, but there are barriers, unfortunately. And one of the barriers could be that you feel that you just don't have the training or the resources. And this training day that we're doing with Faith Associates will equip you, will empower you with those tools and resources to be able to take those ideas that you have further, to fill those gaps in our mosques and be of service to our mosque and our Muslim communities. Brother Shock, I want to, we've been talking for over 50 minutes now, mashallah. I want to give the last few words to yourself, just to kind of round up this evening's discussion.
Jazakallah, thank you so much. Time has just flown by. It's been great talking to you. Look, I'm really looking forward to coming to Glasgow on the 4th of September. The key things that we want to talk about are going to be, one, understanding mosque leadership. What is actually happening in mosques? What are the key challenges? So what does a 21st century Beacon Mosque look like? Secondly is basically how, if you're a sister that wants to be involved, how can you get involved? What do you need to do? What are the stepping stones to get involved with the masajid, inshallah? Thirdly is looking at particularly your personal development issues, positive issues that you need to develop to work within this arena. You used a very good word, the word of khidmah. Khidmah is, Allah says one of the best definitions of a good Muslim is somebody who is of service to somebody. So how do you become of service to people? And if you've got the passion, you want to deliver for the community, you've got the time, you've got the inclination, you've got the passion, you've got the mindset, or even if you want to develop that mindset, come along on the 4th. As Dr. Sahar said, it's completely free. It's not going to cost you anything. Come and meet myself, meet Dr. Sahar, meet other sisters that are equally interested in wanting to get involved and serve humanity. What I found is that, look, I've talked to many masajid over this pandemic period, and what's interesting is that the masajid are helping more non-Muslims than Muslims. And guess who the biggest volunteer base is? The biggest number of volunteers in the masajid delivering those services are women. Women have come forward. So, I've got massive, I'm deeply encouraged by what I've seen during this COVID crisis. I think the Muslim community has stepped up in a big way. I mean, Nadeem Zahawi has come out on a number of occasions, the Minister for the Vaccination has come out on a number of occasions and openly praised the Muslim community for the service from masajids. We had a message from him that we put on Imams Online. And just to kind of reiterate your point, Dr. Sahar, that in imamsonline.com, the number of questions that we get and requests for help around mental health is incredible. So look, we know that moving forward, the biggest population is going to be young people. It's going to be women. And unfortunately, what we're seeing in certain cities is single parents. Who are the best people to support that growing community? And invariably, what we're finding is that sisters who've got those soft skills, those counseling skills, those chaplaincy skills, are going to bring people closer to the deen, back into the community, integrate them back into the community is very important. My last words is that, look, if you want to be involved, if you want to understand some key stepping stones and building blocks required to become active within the masajid or around the masajid, Then come on the 4th of September, inshallah, if Allah gives me the tawfiq, I'll be there. If Scotland doesn't become independent and lock British people out, we'll be there, inshallah, and we will, the team from Vibrant Scottish Mosques will be there at the Andalus Centre, and it'll be from 9:30 to 4-5 o'clock. If I stay the night is yours. We can talk and engage on any subject that you like. It's going to be a very hopefully informative day. We'll bring lots of materials to share with you, and inshallah, I know that the Vibrant Scottish Mosque organization is a pioneering organization that is making strides in a very, very important part of the world, and I'm sure under the leadership of Dr. Sahar, it's going to go places. So if you've got the time, it'd be great to see you there, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
Brother Shaukat, thank you so much for your time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah and blessings in all the work that you do, because mashallah, like I've just said, your work has been inspiration for Vibrant Scottish Mosques and the work that we are doing. So again, thank you for everyone that's been listening. Jazakallah to everybody. May Allah put blessings in your homes and in your families. Thank you for joining us. Assalamu alaikum.